Good evening, friends. Today we'll be discussing Unit 12 Women Rights as Human Rights. Right to food, right to freedom, right to freedom of expression, right to be free from discrimination, right to live and earn are some of the examples of human rights. All human beings are born on this earth must have the fundamental rights which have to be respected and as well as protected. Difference in sex, caste, color, race do not have the rights of human beings. There would be stunned at the disastrous results of Second World War, when which was shaken the morale, the legal as well as the political foundations of the world as an entire community. So we require these human rights, my dear friends, with the main organization to achieve international cooperation in promoting and encouraging respect to human rights and fundamental freedom for all the people across the world. That is the organization which is going to do that is United Nations Organization. Right now we call it as United Organization. So for this, because of the two wars, my dear friends, it has compelled all the nations to come together and establish the international organization for preserving international peace as well as security. In the year 1943, the foreign ministers of Britain, United States of America, Soviet Union, and China, all these four nations met in Moscow and confirmed that there is a necessity for forming an international organization for promoting peace and security. This body laid the foundation for the establishment of United Nations Organization, which was formed or which came into existence officially on 24th October 1945. And we are having certain aims for forming the United Nations Organization. The first one is to save succeeding generations from the war, because most of the nations they are fighting with each other for some or the other reasons. Some nations wants to be powerful for that they are going to destroy the other nations, or else some nations are going to exploit the other nations for natural resources. Like we can see, Africa consists of rich minerals like gold and diamonds. In spite of that, Africans are much backward. We can see the Americans, the Chinese, and the Russians, and so on, going to the African continent and taking the land on lease for years together and turning the natives to work in the mines to explore gold as well as diamonds. And they are taking this back to their respective countries and are becoming very rich. In spite of being the natives, my dear friends, they are being exploited. You can also see that there is a lot of malnutrition, the hunger deaths, and so on, my dear friends. So they thought that our duty is to ensure that there will not be Mars or people are not encouraged towards the war. That was the first aim, my dear friends, for some or the other reason. See, it was formed in the year 1945, and we are in 2024, like. But you must have seen for the past 1.5 year, 2 years, we can see nations fighting with each other, like Russia and Ukraine for some or the other reason, Palestine, Israel. Like you can see internal conflicts as the conflicts between two nations. Okay, and that's now right now the debate is going on because there are five nations which has the permanent veto. That is also one of the reason that using the veto power they are waging the war. And right now they are talking about reforms to be initiated in the United Nations to ensure a strengthy and fair participation in this United Nations. They are talking to increase the number from 5 to 12 and so on. Like there are certain nations which are trying to build up the pressure, but it is not the UN is not yielding for that. So the first one is our duty is to ensure that no nation or no individual will be motivated towards or succeeding generations will not move towards the war. The second aim was to reaffirm faith in fundamental human rights, in the dignity and worth of the human persons, in the equal rights of men and women at the nation, at the nations at large, or even within the nation or across the world, my dear friends. So we are going to establish fundamental human rights and dignity and worth of the human persons. We're talking about equal rights. But even now, as of 2024, we can see that there is plenty of discrimination going on between the races, between different sections of people. If we see last year, even the nation which call itself as a big brother to address all the issues across the world, even in that country, my dear friends, and a person, an American citizen who belong to the uh, Negroid race or who belongs to the African race. He was driving the four wheeler. And when the police tried to stop him, he did not stop because I don't know what was the reason, or even he could not tell what was the reason. He was moving fast. Then the police started chasing him, expecting that he must be smuggling some or the other thing, maybe drugs or maybe weapons and so on. Because he did not stop, the police were forced to chase him. They were chasing him. At last, the police have stopped him. They dragged him out of the car and they made him to sleep on the ground. And the police officer, a white person, he kept his knee on the neck of the person and he was trying to squeeze him, or he was. So at the time, that person, he was saying that I can't breathe. Like he was tapping on the leg of the police officer, but the police officer was reluctant to. And later on, the person has been put to death. He has choked to death because he could not get the sufficient oxygen, my dear friends. Later on, there was a movement initiated in Africa because of the racism, my dear friends, in America. Let me breathe movement has taken up, my dear friends. Along with the blacks, even the white people also came onto the streets, and they have built up the pressure on the government to punish the white police officer. So here, even now, in some of the other parts, we can see that there is discrimination going on between the people, maybe based on the race, maybe based on gender, and so on, my dear friends. So for that reason, the second aim was to ensure that each and every individual, irrespective of gender, has the faith in the fundamental human rights as well as in the dignity of uh, and dignity and worth of the human persons. The third one was to promote justice through the application of international law. So, whenever people are not in a position to satisfy the requirements or get justice within the nation, they also said that they are going to have the International Court of Justice, where people can go there and they can get justice, my dear friends. So, the third one was to promote justice. The fourth one was to promote social progress and better standards of life. It's not only to provide human rights, my dear friends, also to promote progress, social progress, that each and every person has the opportunity to upgrade their status, to go for social, upgrade their social position or social conditions, my dear friends. We require social mobility. People must get an opportunity to move on in the social status. At the same time, they also has to get an opportunity to work, nothing but for livelihood, which is going to allow them to get the better standard of life. So, in order to ensure that people are going to get equal, good salaries, good packages, the kind of working conditions are good enough. So, in order to ensure that there is a free trade, my dear friends, International Labor Organization is working on that. So we also have certain agencies under United Nations to, in order to fulfill the aims of this organization. So these are the main four aims of for formulating the United Nations organization. The United Nations organization consists of General Assembly, Security Council, Economic and Social Council, Trusteeship Council, International Court of Justice, and Secretariat. The General Assembly helps in the realization of human rights. The United Nations Organization guarantees for the protection of human rights through five legal instruments. United Nations has been working very hard since its inception in the year 1945 through its international instruments to advocate the principle of equality between men and women. It proclaims in its preamble the determination of the people of the United Nations to reaffirm faith in the fundamental human rights and worth of human dignity and worth of human persons in the equal right of men and women. That already we have discussed this. Okay, the United Nations also have universal declaration of human rights and in a statement of principles with an appeal to every individual to promote and respect the right and freedom it defines. The General Assembly also approved the Declaration of Human Rights on 10th December 1948, and this declaration states that recognition of the inherent dignity and of equal rights of all members of the human family in the foundation of freedom, justice, and peace in the world. The declaration was adopted as a common standard in order to achieve for all people and for all the nations. It is not for the four nations which came forward with the agenda, but it is for all the people across the world and for all the nations, my dear friends. Now, we also have um, there are certain points to be discussed under universal equality of all human beings. First one, they also they made a statement that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights. They said once they are born free, that means the state has to ensure that each and every individual can exercise their freedom, my dear friends. The second one, they said that everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedom set forth in the declaration without any distinction or discrimination on the basis of sex, race, language, religion, region, status, and so on, my dear friends. So these are the two things which they have taken into account when we talk about universal equality for all the human beings, my dear friends. Now we also have civil as well as political rights. Like we have right to live, liberty, and security of person. Each and every person has the right to life, liberty, and security of persons. Second one, no one shall be held in slavery or servitude, and slave trade shall be prohibited in all its form. We are talking about slaves. We are also talking about bonded labor. So, as a part of civil and political rights, United Nations organization also said that slavery should be banned and nobody can practice it, my dear friends. But if you see, almost a year back, in near Charminar, 400 children who belong to the northern part of India, like children from Chhattisgarh, Jharkhand, they were brought to work in the bangle industry, and the child welfare department, when they tried to rescue, they came to know that the children were forced to work for longer periods, more than 14 hours in a day, and they were given little food which was not sufficient, and if they are not working, they used to torture them and they used to punish them. It happened in Hyderabad almost a year back. If you see, you must have read in the newspapers, my dear friends. So during the year 1945, 47, 48, when they have brought this, my dear friends, at the time they also talked about the civil and political rights, where they mentioned that the slavery should be banned. It may be in any form, my dear friends. The next one is they talked that no one shall be subjected to torture, degrading treatment, or punishment. So whether it's on gender, whether it's on anything, my dear friends, we people do not have the right to torture or punish them. At the same time, they also said that all are equal before the law, and there must not be any discrimination. Okay, there must not be any discrimination when we talk about the protection of law, applying the law to the any person. The next one is the right to recognize everywhere as a person before the law. Recognition of the people wherever they go. You cannot show any discrimination, my dear friends. whether if the north people are coming to the south or the south people going to the north. Like we also find little bit discrimination, like in terms of employment opportunities and so on, my dear friends. So here they said that there must not be any um, discrimination. Everyone must be treated equally in front of law. The next one, what they mention is that the right to effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights which were granted by the constitution or by the law. So if any person has violated, or any person is going to look any person down or look them down, or else they are going to degrade them or they are going to abuse them, then there must be a competitive authority which is going to address these issues. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. At the same time, it also said that people need to have right to full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of his or her rights. We said that each and every person needs to have fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal. If you see in Mumbai, Kasar, he went into the railway terminal and he has opened the firing on the people indiscriminately, killing the people. And there was also a bomb blast in a Taj hotel. Like all the evidence was recorded in the television CC cameras. There were people who have seen it live, and it also has been telecasted. But in spite of that, when he was caught, when he has taken to the courts, the government also gave an opportunity for Kasar to have his own advocate and also advocate on behalf of him. Even there was evidence, they did not directly punish him, my dear friends. They have provided him jet plus security. When the trial was going on, my dear friends, they have appointed, they gave the freedom for him to have a fair trial by having an advocate for himself, my dear friend. So here, each and every person, irrespective of gender, irrespective of their social or economical condition, my dear friends, we need to have equality in terms of fair and public hearing. Then everyone charged with a penal offense had the right to be presumed innocence until proved guilty according to the law. Where a person was presumed, then you have to assume that the person is innocent till the verdict, till they have proved that the person is a criminal. Then we also have the right to protection of law against interference with privacy, family, home, or correspondence, or attack upon his honor and reputation. You must have seen during the previous election when some people were making, you must have seen that people have gone to the courts saying that with so and so statements they are degrading my honor. In the name of honor, my dear friends, they have sued the people for crores of rupees too. In the same way, they also talked about right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each part of the nation or each state. That means any person across the country can move to any part of the nation and settle there. Till this Article 370 and 35 was repealed, people can go to Jammu and Kashmir, but they do not have the right to purchase a piece of land because of the special status. As these two section articles have been removed, right now any person can go to Jammu and Kashmir and they can also procure the land and they can also live there, my dear friends. So they have the right to move and reside anywhere across the country. If you want to go at the international level, so we are going to have certain set of rules and regulations. Abiding to the set of rules and regulations, you can apply for visa, and if they grant visa, my dear friends, whether it's for a temporary or a permanent visa, you can go and also reside there, my dear friends. If we see almost a decade back, some of the Scandinavian countries like Sweden and so on, they have given permanent visas, green cards to the citizenship. But if you want to go to America, you can go on visiting visa, H1 visa like B, working permit. And if you get a chance, if you're blessed enough, you can also get a green card. That means you're going to become the citizen of that country. Or else, some of the people who feel insecure to stay in their countries, they can also apply for refugee. That means the nation will also provide citizenship for them, but with the condition that they are going to lose their permanent citizen in their native nations if you are going to apply under refugee quota, my dear friends. So if you want within the country, they are free to go anywhere. But when you talk about international movement, we have to abide to certain rules and regulations. Then it also talked about right to seek and enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. The next one is right to nationality, right to marry and have a family, right to own property, maybe alone or maybe in association with the other people, maybe with the wife, maybe with the friends, maybe with anyone. They are free to have own the property. They also have the right to freedom of conscience and religion, for science and religion on thought. So every person can have their own thought. They can follow the faith of their choice without any restrictions. They also have the right to freedom of opinion as well as expression, right to freedom of peaceful assembly and association, and the last one is right to take part in the government of his country directly or through freely chosen representatives. So these are the civil and political rights which have been provided to all the citizens across the world, maybe within a particular geographical area or for the entire mankind, my dear friends. Along with this, we also have economic, social, as well as cultural rights. The first one is right to social security. Second one, we also have the right to work and free choice of employment to just and favorable conditions of work. So here we are going to say that no one should be forced to work. Let the people enjoy the work of their choice. There must not be any restriction or any force in terms of taking up any employment opportunity, my dear friends. At the same time, we are also going to say that the people must be provided with favorable working conditions. If the conditions are not good enough, then the person may become sick or ill, and it may lead to health issues, or the production may come down, they may face trouble. For that reason, we are saying that we need to have favorable working conditions. At the same time, we are also going to say that they are going to have protection against unemployment. For example, some companies or some industries, what they can do is that they may force the people to increase the production. As the production has been increased, the people may say that because the sales are low, now we don't require further production, so you're being unemployed maybe for a week's time, maybe for a month's time, or something like. They may also become unemployed. So they're also going to get protection under this unemployment, so that the company will also pay the salaries during that particular point of time, my dear friends. They also have the protection from unemployment. The next one is that they have the right to rest and leisure. According to the labor laws in India, they say that the person has to work only for 40 hours in a week. 40 hours in a week. You cannot force the workers to work beyond that. If you want to increase the production, if you want to reach the target, like you have a target that you have to hand over the products to the people who have placed the orders, like at the time you may request the people to work effectively for overtime, for which you're going to pay the salary double during the working period. If you're going to pay 10 rupees per hour during the OT, you're supposed to pay double. That means per hour we are going to pay them 20 rupees. Like, only when the target date is very very close, at that time only you can insist the people to work. Whereas the rest of the time, my dear friends, you cannot force the people to work more than 40 hours. If you see in the software industry, they work from morning 9 to evening 7, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12, 12 to 1, 1 to 2, 2 to 3, 3 to 4, 4 to 5, 5 to 6, 6 to 7. So 10 into 5 days, it is going for 50 hours. So there must be a question from your side. Sir, you said 40 hours, and how come they are working for 50 hours in a week? So what they have done is that they have removed the breaks time. For example, they have 1 hour for lunchtime. So 5 days into 1 hour, 5 hours have gone. 50 minus 5, 45 hours. Then they are also going to give 2 or 3 breaks, my dear friends, during the time. So half an hour in the morning, in between, like evening, 15 minutes to half an hour. So even they are going to detect that, and they are going to ensure that they work only for 40 hours. Constructive production for 40 hours, not beyond that, my dear friends, in the office time. But we can see in reality, they may give homework, or the people work during the home at the home in order to reach the targets that the individual capacity, my dear friends. But they are not forced to work according to the law. They are not forced to work for more than, and they're also entitled for rest as well as leisure. Then we also have the right to standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of self and family, and the right security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, and old age. The next one, they also talked about right to education. It is the duty of the nation to provide education so that people, their skills will be enhanced. They'll be able to work effectively, which will enable them to improve their social status, allows them to allows for social mobility, allows them to increase the social status along with the financial conditions, my dear friends. So we require the right to education. It also talked about right to freely participate in the cultural life of the community. In the cultural life of the community, everyone is entitled to a social and international order in which the rights and freedoms set forth in the declaration can be fully realized. Everyone has the duties towards the community, not only the rights, they also have the duties towards the community, in which alone be free and full development of personality is possible. Nothing in this declaration may be interpreted as implying for any state, group, or person any right to engage in any activity or to perform any act aimed at the destruction of any of the rights and freedoms set forth herein. That means we are not going to take up any activities wherein some people are going to lose their rights or people are going to lose their freedom. So these kind of rights have been inscribed uh, uh, in the universal equality of human rights, my dear friends. And when we talk about international endeavors for women rights, the United Nations has actively been working for gender justice or women's rights. And it has set up its commission in order to look after the status of women in the year 1946, with the main task of making recommendations for ECOSOC, which is dealing in the promotion of women's rights in all the countries. The Commission on the Status of Women or Women's Rights have suggested that the programs for the rights of women should be mentioned with the or should be with the objectives like. Let us discuss these objectives. The first one is to promote universal recognition of the dignity and worth of the human person and of equal rights of men and women in accordance with the Charter and the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. The first thing, it is already there in the preamble of the United Nations, but it is not implemented. So this committee has said that the first duty is to promote this universal recognition of equal rights. The second one, it also said that it is the duty of the organization to enable women to participate fully in the development of society, so that the benefits of the contribution uh, so that it can be contributed to all the members within who are there within the society. So our duty is to make them take them active part. The third one is to stimulate awareness, because if you want to have this participation without awareness among both the men and women, my dear friends, without making the women realize about their full potential, we cannot expect them to take active part in all the activities. So for this, our duty is to bring awareness. So in the year 1970, the recommendation of this commission on the status of women was adopted by the United Nations General Assembly. Remember, it has, because the committee was appointed in the year 1966, after almost 21 years after the formation of United Nations, and whatever the recommendations were given, it was adopted in the year 1970, my dear friends. um, the Commission on the Status of Women has laid down the target. Like when they have made, they said that all these three objectives need to be fulfilled or reached by the year 1980. So they had given a decade's time for reaching that. So in the year 1972, the United Nations General Assembly has declared 1975 as the International Women's Year, and they have adopted the strategy for the development, for the welfare and promotion of the women's status. And they are, the first one is full inclusion of women into the total development efforts. That means we are going to motivate them to take part in all the development activities in the country or across the world. The second one is ratification of or uh, association of, to implement uh, ratification of the international conventions relating to the status of women. Third one is enactment of legislation to bring national laws into conformity with relevant international instruments, in particularly Declaration on the Discrimination Against Women. So whatever the international laws are being defined, so the nations also have to make the laws in accordance with that. The next one, they also said that there must be an assessment of women's contribution to the various economic as well as social sectors in relation to their country's overall development plans and programs. That means we are also going to see how the people are going to work, and it also has to be assessed from time to time so that the government will have the information so that they are going to design the law policies or plans or programs in accordance with that. So they also said there must be assessment. The next one, they said that there must be the effects of scientific and technological changes and the status of women, because whenever we are going to have a lot of changes, my dear friends, it also have the effect on the human beings. So not only on the men, it also has the effect on the women too. So what kind of effect it is going to have, we have to take up it from the study from time to time. For example, when we talked about the status of women from different periods of time, we studied that in the Indian society during the Vedic time, the status of women was good. Women also had the opportunity to go for education. We have also seen philosophers, writers, and so on during that time. Because at the time, the work was concentrated at home, and women has played a vital role or a dominant role in terms of production process. But once machinery came, once small industries came into existence, the industries have been, or the work has been replaced from the household activity or from the cottage industries to that of the production centers, my dear friends. As the work production process has been shifted from the hands of the women to that of the outside agencies, the importance of the prominence of women has been come down, where they were forced or where the status of women has come down, my dear friends. So whenever technology is introduced, it is also going to have certain effect on the human beings. It may be in terms of their economical activities, it may be in terms of the status of the women, it may be in relation with the psychological aspects or biological or physical aspects, my dear friends. So all this we are going to study, my dear friends. So these are the strategies which were adopted by the UN General Assembly in the year 1970 in order to ensure that women status can be improved, my dear friends. The year 1975, being the International Women's Year, has devoted for promoting equality between men and women. And they've also put on the efforts, my dear friends, to ensure the full integration of women in the total development process. And they have put on a lot of efforts to recognize the importance of women's contribution in the development process. In the year 1952, uh, sorry, in the year 1952, The General Assembly has adopted the UN Convention on the Political Rights of Women. This was the first instrument of international law which was aimed to grant and protect the women rights throughout the world. It was also set up. It also set up the Commission of Human Rights to codify the legal rights of women across the world, my dear friends. Now let us discuss about the Convention on the Political Rights of Women, which was drafted in the year 1952. The convention talked about political rights of women, and this was the first international law, my dear friends, after this United Nations has came into force, and that too especially for the women, my dear friends. The Convention of the Political Rights of Women was opened for signatures and ratification by the General Assembly in the year 1952, and which also came into enforcement on 7th July 1954, my dear friends. And they talked about equal rights, access to public services in the country, and so on. And they talked about Article 1. Women shall be entitled to vote in all the elections on equal terms with men without any discrimination. Because we are talking about political rights, they have appointed this commission in the year 1952, which came into enforcement in the year 1954. The first article which they have drafted is that women shall be entitled to vote in all elections on par with the men, my dear friends. Second article, Article 2, has stated that women shall be eligible for elections to all public elected bodies established by national law on equal terms with men without any discrimination. That means even the women can also take part, contest in the elections in all the bodies, public elected bodies across the country, my dear friends. It may be board of directors, it may be from the local bodies to that of the central government, my dear friends. Wherever there is elected bodies, public elected bodies are there, women must have the right according to Article 2. And Article 3 states that women shall be entitled to hold public offices, and they can also exercise all public functions established by national law with the equal terms on par with the men without any discrimination. So they can hold any position, my dear friends. So these are the three articles which was framed according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of the United Nations, my dear friends. Now let us discuss about the first women's conference which was held in Mexico during the year 1975, because that was a international year for women, my dear friends. Women's year. The first conference of women was held in the year 1975 in Mexico with the theme Equality, Development, and Peace. The decade during 1975 to 85 was declared by the United Nations as a decade for women. During this decade, the main focus was to develop the conditions of the women, recognize the strength of the women, and encourage them to take part in all the activities, equal opportunities in all the domains of life, my dear friends. And they also want to integrate women into the development process, and whatever the responsibilities are there, they are going to say that all the responsibilities which are provided in the public life can be equally provided to all the people, and the results or the fruits can also be enjoyed by each and every section of the individual without any discrimination. So for that, they have formed certain guidelines for improving the status of women. The first one is increase in women's literacy, because most of the people during that time were illiterate. Because of illiteracy, blind faith, ignorance will be prevailing. For that reason, they said that educate the women so that they will have information, they will have awareness on the rights inscribed by the constitution or the legal rights which they are going to inherit, my dear friends. The second one, what they mentioned is create employment opportunities for women. At the same time, also employment as well as pay. Ensure that they are going to get opportunities, because if we see in some areas, people are reluctant because they think that it's a male dominant society, and when women are going to work with the men, they may be exploited in the workplace and so on. These kind of things are there. So when we are going to generate employment opportunities, we're also going to formulate certain laws for the benefit of women or for the betterment of women, my dear friends, in the workplace too. So we are going to create employment opportunities. We are also going to ensure that they have equal pay for equal work, my dear friends. The third one is we are going to create laws to guarantee equality in terms of political participation. Then the next one is health education and rural services. Most of the people, even now in the rural areas, they do not have proper awareness on health related issues. So they use the traditional methods to heal, or they go from homemade remedies, or else they simply go to the alchemist, or they go to the witch in order to satisfy their health issues, or solve their health problems, my dear friends. So it is the duty of the government to also provide health education, so that whenever they are having any issue, they can approach the hospital on time and they can get the right treatment, my dear friends. At the same time, we also require rural services, like whatever the services are there, like transportation, health services, educational services, and so on. All these have to be built up and provided so that we are going to transform the rural communities. The next one, we are going to have parity of civil, social, and political rights, such as which are related with marriage, citizenship, and commerce. We also have recognition of women's traditional unpaid work at the home and domestic food production, because even they are working at home and that is not identified or recognized. Husbands simply say, males say that you're simply staying at home and you're enjoying your life. And the work like washing the clothes, cooking the food, cleaning the house, all this is treated as unpaid work, and the women do not have the status at all, my dear friends. So they also thought of recognizing the women's traditional unpaid work, both at home and domestic food production, my dear friends. So these were the plans which were taken at the time in the year 1975 in order to eliminate any form of discrimination against women. So when there was meeting at Mexico, they have made certain plan of action. Mexico world of plan action. It was not for one nation, but it was for the entire world. And the action pointed out at the differences in political status of women and men. And this plan urged that there must be equal access to for women on the decision making bodies at all levels in the government as well as in the field of employment. It pointed out that there is a discrimination against women which was incompatible with the human dignity, welfare of the family, the society, which is going to prevent their participation on equal terms in the social, economical, political, and so on. And it is going to create the obstacles for full participation of the women in the development process, my dear friends. The conference felt that the restructuring we require, we need to restructure the society. We need to restructure the world economies, which are going to help or which is going to create greater possibilities for women to be integrated into the mainstream world, my dear friends. We need to transform the societies because the societies are patriarchal with the orthodox setup. So our duty is to restructure the system. It also suggested the nations to provide necessary resources which will enable the women to upgrade themselves, get the opportunity to get educated, and help them to participate in the political life of the country. The Mexico World Plan has talked about a few plans. Let us discuss about them. The first one, it is the duty of the government to ensure women participation both in public as well as in political life. It is the duty of the government to ensure it. Second one, where legislation does not exist. In some countries, we do not have the legislation which is going to guarantee or provide the rights for the women. In those cases, the nations have to draft the policies for the betterment of women, my dear friends. The next one is we require special qualification because you cannot expect a downtrodden, socially backward, economically backward to compete with a person who is social and economically well off. So we need to have the special qualification for the people, so that they can hold the public offices also. The government should establish goals, strategies, and also a timetable in order to reach or in order to increase the women participation during this decade 1975 to 85. During this time, they thought that our duty is to reach the target, develop the process of women. They also suggested that there must be a plan with the efforts to achieve the objectives. And the plan suggested that there must be a reaffirmation of wide publicity for the official policy, which is concerned with equal political participation. If you are going to simply form a policy and if it is only there on the pen and paper, people who are there in the remote areas, they will not understand it. They will not get the information. So the duty of the government is also to publicize these policies. You have to take it to the people, maybe in the television, maybe in the radios, maybe printing the laws and giving it to the people, or else have meetings and spread the awareness. So these are the things which we need to take. The next one, they also suggested to issue special government instructions for achieving equitable representation of women. So after having laws, you also have to implement that. For that, we have to, or the state has to give the instructions. The third one is we need to organize studies to establish the levels of economic, social, and political competition of women compared to men in the recruitment process, nomination, as well as in the promotion process. So, for that, we need to have studies which will allow the state to design or redesign the policies for motivating them. So, these are the action plans which are mentioned during that time with these objectives. Like, then we also have like special efforts and campaigns should be initiated in order to enlighten women electorates, people, voters, like on the political issues, so that they can elect the right person. They can take active participation in political processes. Then we also require education and informational activities in order to enlighten the people. We also require special drives. We also require special drives to increase the participation of women and girls in rural communities. Like we have youth development programs. We also have political activities, and we also have some committees where we require people's participation. So women and girls, in order to have an active role, we are going to promote them. We are going to bring awareness on about them. So these kind of strategies have been initiated by the United Nations uh, committee, the meeting which was held in the year 1975 in Mexico. This was a Mexico World Plan. Okay. Now let us discuss about Convention on the Enlightenment of All Forms of Discrimination Against Women, CEDAW, which was uh, formed in the year 1979. This came into force in the year 1981. The state parties to the Convention on the Elimination of All the Forms of Discrimination Against Women noted that the Universal Declaration of Human Rights proclaimed that all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and have equal rights. The convention noted that the various resolutions, declarations, and recommendations which were adopted by the United Nations uh, promote equal rights for women on par with the men, and they are going to recognize and inspire the women to enjoy equal rights on par with the women might sorry on par with the men. The committee has was set up with the monitors, which monitors the convention on elimination of all forms of discrimination against women. And this is going to provide information report by the state parties to the convention. The convention works with the articles like. Let us discuss about some of these articles. The first one is Article 1. There will not be any discrimination against women. Article 2 condemns discrimination against women in all forms and evolve a policy to eliminate discrimination. And they are going to take a include the principle of equality, adopt legislative measures, and take all necessary to modify and abolish the customs, practices, laws against the discrimination of women. Article 3 talks about promotion or creating appropriate measures in order to ensure the advancement and development of women and guarantee them to enjoy the human rights. Article 6 provides for adopting temporary special measures to accelerate and measure aim to protect maternity and uh, against discrimination. Article 5 also tries to take measures which tries to modify the social patterns, cultural patterns of conduct of men and both women, and tries to eliminate prejudice, customs, and practices which are treated as inferior and superior on either of the sexes. And also talks to ensure family education, health education, and so on. Article 6 of the convention says that they have to take all the measures, including legislation, to suppress trafficking of women and exploitation of women in prostitution. Article 7 of the convention also says that it has to take appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination of women against political and public life within the country and ensure that they have equal rights. Article 8 of the convention says that they have to take measures to ensure women represent their government at the international levels. Article 9 grants women equal rights on par with the men to acquire, change, and restrain their nationality. Article 10 of the convention shall take measures to eliminate discrimination against women and ensure equal rights in the field of education. Article 11 tries to take all the measures to eliminate discrimination against women in the field of employment, uh, especially right to work, right to safe employment opportunities, right to profession, right to social security, right to equal remuneration, and so on, my dear friends. Article 12 of the convention takes about appropriate measures to eliminate discrimination against women in the field of healthcare. Article 13 takes measures to eliminate discrimination against women in the economic and social life in order to ensure same rights to women in the rights of family benefits, bank loans, financial credit, and so on. Article 14 talks about the problems faced by the women and also talks about taking the measures to eliminate all the discriminations. Article 15 talks about Women Act equality, that too in front of the law. Article 16 tries to take appropriate measures to ensure equality in matters which are related to marriage and family relations. They have the freedom of chance to select the spouse, the rights and responsibilities during marriage and its dissolution, and so on. Child rights, property rights, and so on. Adoption of children, right to choose their family's name, and so on. So all the things which are related with the marriage and social relations or family relations that has been inscribed in Article 16. Article 17 talks about the purpose of considering the progress made in implementation of present convention. There shall be established a committee on the elimination of discrimination against women. Then Article 18, state parties undertake to submit to the Secretary General of the United Nations for considerations by the committee report on the measures which they have adopted and the progress which they have brought. Article 19 says that the committee shall adopt its own rules of procedure and elect the officers for the term of 2 years. Article 20 has said that the meeting of the committee shall be held at the United Nations headquarters or at any other convenient places. Article 21 of the convention says that the committee, through Economic and Social Council reports annually to the General Assembly of the United Nations on its activities and make suggestions as well as recommendations. So based on the reports on economic and social reports, my dear friends, they are going to scrutinize the activities and they are going to give the suggestions as well as the recommendations in order to see the progress takes place, and we can also ensure that we have a fair development process, and we ensure that the women are actively taking part in all the development process without any discrimination, my dear friends. So we also have Second World Conference of Women held at Copenhagen, the capital of Denmark, in the year 1980, because at the time they have called the United Decade for Women and emphasized education, employment, and health. So in the meeting, they have discussed on these topics. Then in the Third World Conference held at Nairobi in the year 1985, they have reviewed about all the policies which have been taken place, and they also discussed on various obstacles, and they also made a plan how to overcome all these things. The NGOs at the time have suggested that we need to create opportunities for the women, so that also bring awareness on the economic, political factors, and so on. They also said that there must be some national NGOs which are going to have a closer association with the government or with the people, which can develop advocacy on women's participation within political parties and so on. They also said that political parties were also urged to take active part and involve women in this process. This way, we can see that we have the United Nations Convention, which has been meeting every year or so in order to ensure that women have equal rights and participation in all the social domain, my dear friends. The Fourth World Conference of Women was held in Beijing, China, and so on. And already we have discussed about the women's rights as per the Indian Constitution. Like we have discussed about the Article 14, 15, 16, and we also discussed about the fundamental rights, my dear friends, in detail. If you want, we'll be discussing about that in the next class, that is tomorrow, my dear friends. If you have any doubts, you are free to ask me, my dear friends, or else we'll conclude for the day. If you have any doubts, you are free to ask, or else we'll conclude for the day. Okay, seems to be no doubts. Chalo, have a nice time.